Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. It is the LSU coaching search. And I'll say this, and I think I said it a few weeks ago about Penn State, but it is crazy. You know, everything at LSU happens so fast that I think, you know, we're just so conditioned, and I include myself in the media. I assume you guys as consumers, like we just digest the piece of information and then we just move on to the next thing, right? And so I bring it up with LSU because it goes from, hey, they're top 20 in the country and very much in the playoff race if they beat Texas A&M. They get destroyed by Texas A&M. It goes from bad to worse to Brian Kelly fired, and then we're already talking about Lane Kiffin, Clark Lee, James Franklin as the next head coach. But what I don't think we took time to appreciate was how quickly things happened, and I think transparently how just crazy it is in Louisiana around this LSU coaching search. You know when I knew that Brian Kelly was in trouble? It was obviously during the Texas A&M game. And I have been somebody, if you listen to this show, I've been critical of Brian Kelly. I thought after the Vandy game, I said, hey, there is no excuse for your team to be playing as poorly as it is, to look like they did against Vandy, but they lose to A&M. And the moment that I knew, oh, Brian Kelly's in real trouble here, we talked about it on Sunday night, but do you remember the Louisiana governor, Josh Landry, on Saturday night, after the game, tweeting about the situation at LSU. I don't know if you remember the story, Matt, if we have the tweet. LSU announces that they are raising tickets last week. They get boat raced by Texas A&M. And the governor, Jeff Landry, I think I said Josh Landry, Jeff Landry, governor, I apologize. Because, Governor, we want you to come on this show because you clearly have takes on sports. So, Governor Landry, I apologize. But this was on Saturday night after the game. He said, I think LSU Sports and the LSU Board of Supervisors needs to rethink their actions to raise ticket prices for next year after tonight's showing. So you knew the governor wasn't happy. Then we found out on Sunday the governor is involved with the firing process. And goodness gracious, did we get an update on the LSU coaching search on Wednesday? Listen, by now you've all seen the video. By now you've all heard the audio. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about what the governor, Jeff Landry, said at one of his media availabilities on Wednesday. Now, as it turns out, and I just found this out after the fact, the media availability was all about SNAP benefits, okay? And this is where, by the way, we're going to delve a little bit into politics, and we're not a political show, and we're not trying to take sides on issues. We got other shows for that. And by the way, there's plenty of other sports commentators that want to share their political opinions. I'm not one of them. But at the same time, Governor Landry was addressing SNAP benefits on Wednesday, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he is asked about the LSU football coaching job. Trey Wallace, my buddy, shared that tweet. Bam, LSU football and athletics come up. Well, Governor Landry was asked about the LSU coaching search, and more importantly, remember, Scott Woodward is the man that hired Brian Kelly at LSU. It's also worth noting, and you'll hear this in the audio, Scott Woodward is also the guy that hired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. He was asked about the coaching search. Is Scott Woodward making the hire? How is the next process going to play out? Governor Landry did not hold back on Wednesday. Let's take a listen.
To foot the bill. So, yeah, I absolutely. Who's that? No. I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is not selecting the next coach. Hell, I'll let Donald Trump select it before I let him do it. I don't know, but the Board of Supervisors is going to come up with a committee, and they're going to go find us a coach. Hold on. One real quick thing on that. Because here's what y'all reporters need to do. Y'all need to start looking at who represents all these people, like these agents. You know what's interesting? If I'm not mistaken, Woodward's agent, Kelly's agent, the Texas A&M, they're all the same agent. Like, you realize if I would be, I don't know how many sports writers we got here today? Just you. We should have a bunch. Okay? Like, this is ridiculous. Lawyers would be disbarred for the way these agents act and the way they're able to represent. In fact, there's no doubt, they may even represent some of the players now. Like, it's really time for the NCAA to put on some guardrails in college sports. Because, and it's fine. We don't need the guardrails. If big billionaires want to spend all that kind of money, No problem. But if I got to go find $53 million from Kevin, it's not going to be a pleasant conversation. I'm just telling you.
As I told you, Governor Landry's got takes, baby. And I'll tell you this, Governor Landry, if this makes it back to you, maybe, Matt, we clip this off and tag it for Governor Landry. Governor Landry, you got sports takes. If you want to come on the Aaron Torres pod and talk the state of LSU football, what needs to get fixed, maybe even the state of college football in general, you, my man, have an open invite. So let's go ahead and dive in to the situation at LSU. And I think the big thing that everybody wants to know is all this chaos actually going to impact the coaching job? First of all, a couple thoughts on the actual audio from Governor Landry. One, I say this in the least disrespectful way possible, okay? Because everybody has comments about how Torres talks, right? Like, every time I say click the subscribe button, everybody tells me I don't know how to say the word button. I don't know how to say it better. Anyway, I bring it up because, serious question. Has anyone sounded more like a Louisiana governor than the actual Louisiana governor? That's no disrespect. It's just a fact, okay? Like, I'm sorry. But if you were going central casting, we need an accent, we need the whatever. I don't want to be judgmental. I'm not being judgmental. He sounds like the Louisiana governor, exactly how I want my Louisiana governor to sound. Just like I want my Massachusetts governor to sound like JFK. Don't do for the country, whatever it is. You get the point. I'm off the rails today. It's 2 days before Halloween. I'm like Kalani Sitake. I've had too much sugar. Anyway, one, love this Landry character. Love that he sounds exactly like I want a Louisiana governor to sound. Two, I think he made some interesting points about the state of college sports. Now, I would say a couple things he said aren't totally accurate. Brian Kelly and Jimbo Fisher do not have the same agent. Brian Kelly is represented by Trace Armstrong, Jimbo Fisher by Jimmy Sexton. Also worth noting, Scott Woodward actually didn't give Jimbo Fisher the big extension that led to the buyout. It was Ross Bjork. Scott Woodward did hire Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. So just a couple things out of that audio, but I do think his broader point about the state of college sports is worth addressing. But then I think the bigger picture issue is this, is that what we learned in that audio, Scott Woodward, the AD, is not making the coaching hire. I think it is very fair to assume that there will not be an AD in place to make a coaching hire, and it sounds like there's going to be an outside committee making the decision. And so I think three, the combination of no AD plus a little bit of chaos in the state, to say the least, with the governor trying to use the football program to score political points, is it going to scare away serious contenders for the job? So let's go ahead and talk about all of it. And by the way, for full coverage of all things LSU, because it's coming over these next few days, make sure to follow Torres on LSU for all your late-breaking LSU news. Torres on LSU, one of our team-specific accounts. We have an intern helping us. We appreciate his support on that page. All right, so let's dive in. No AD. Let's talk about that aspect of this whole situation at LSU. It's certainly not a good thing. And I think sometimes, the obvious point is the important one. I think sometimes, I like to honestly, frankly, have perspective that others don't have. But I think the perspective here is the obvious one. Does anyone really like taking a job where you don't know who your boss is going to be when you take it? Listen, we've all been in these situations, right? Any walk of life, right? When you're thinking about leaving one job for another, there's a couple variables. One, what's the compensation package, whether it's pay, whether it's benefits, whether it's whatever, you're thinking about that. Is it better than where you're at? That's usually one reason to take a job. Two, what is it, a better job, period? Are you getting a promotion? Are you getting a raise? Well, LSU, I believe, is one of the best jobs in college football, which is a positive we'll get to in a second. But then three, I think whenever you're leaving a job, especially a good job where you're having success, it comes down to who are you going to be working for at the next place? Do you like that guy or girl? Do you believe in that guy or girl? Do you believe that person is going to help elevate you even further? And generally, if you can't answer that question with a yes, that's usually a pretty big red flag. My buddy Colin Cowherd says this all the time. He says, don't chase money, chase great management. In other words, it's not just about how good you are. It's about how good are the people that you're working for. It's something I take seriously in my career. If I'm not working with or for people that I like and I trust, I just don't take a job. And so I think that's certainly a factor. We don't know who the AD is. And then beyond that, when we're not going to know who the AD is before this hire gets made. And then beyond that, clearly there's chaos behind the scenes. The governor's involved. Like I said, he's trying to score political points. What does it all mean? All of that. And so I think it's raised a very fair question of, is this going to impact the hiring process at LSU? I think it's worth a conversation. And I think definitely if you are a guy that has real, genuine, either great options or you already have a great A+++ job, then yeah, it probably will. I think the chaos, probably if I was Marcus Freeman sitting at Notre Dame saying, I got a really good job, I might make the playoff again for a second straight year, might want to pump the brakes on that one. Lane Kiffin, I got a great job at Ole Miss. Florida wants me. The NFL probably wants me at this point. Is that a situation I want to walk into? But what I would also say is this. I will defend LSU by saying that I think the job is so good that I think for the vast majority of candidates, it probably doesn't mean very much. And I'll take it a step further. I think even for the elite candidates, the job is so good, you have to at least think about it. As far as the LSU job is concerned, we talked about this on Sunday when Brian Kelly was fired. I think there are, to me, 4 jobs that are a cut above everyone else in college football. Okay. 4 jobs where basically you are, one, you're in a power conference. You are in a place where you have everything needed to win at the highest level, and where, for the most part, you don't have a ton of competition for the best players in your area. Now, look, I know high school recruiting isn't as important as it once was. I still think you want to, it's just easier to find really good players. I mean, Ed Orgeron did an interview on the other day, I think it was Wednesday, where he was asked about being like an assistant at Florida. He said, I could go find an All-American within a 15-minute drive anywhere in that state. So high school recruiting does matter. I think the 4 jobs that to me are definitively better than every other job are Ohio State, Georgia, Texas. I know that A&M is there and they're recruiting really well, but there's so many players in Texas, I don't know that it matters. And then LSU. And I think you can actually argue that LSU might be the best one because unlike Georgia, unlike Texas, there is no other power conference school in your state. And players grow up, you don't need me to tell you, but every player in Louisiana grows up wanting to go to LSU. I don't know that that happens in every other state. I don't know that every kid in, Georgia not even necessarily wants to go to Georgia. Some want to go to Auburn. Some want to go to Bama. Some want to go to Florida State, whatever. LSU, all those kids pretty much want to go to LSU. Like, I think it's kind of interesting. Number 1 high school player in America, a defensive lineman by the name of Lamar Brown, is from Louisiana and committed to LSU. And why I find that funny is not funny. That's not the right word, but why I find it interesting. He was asked about decommitting and potentially looking at other schools. And he said, look, you can call me, but right now I'm fully committed to LSU and I am going to wait to see who the next head coach is before I make any big decisions. And I'm paraphrasing. Steve Wiltfong has all the details. I've heard Steve Wiltfong talk about it. I'm not trying to take credit as my own reporting. But the point is, I don't think he's going to decommit. And I think it's because, kids in that state grow up wanting to be an LSU Tiger. I think the other thing, though, and I'll mention this, is the LSU job is so good, I don't think it's going to scare most people away because, again, how many people really have better jobs where it's not worth taking the risk? Remember, for whatever we think about how the Brian Kelly era worked out, the bottom line is the winningest coach in the history of Notre Dame football left Notre Dame voluntarily to take this job. So that shows you how good the job is. And I was also thinking about this, is that I just don't know how much the AD not being in place matters for this reason. I don't know how much power any AD has in this new era of college football as we get to a world where we have general managers and front offices and whatever. And if you look at the landscape of the rest of college football, I think you'd actually be surprised with all these jobs open over how many of these ADs are actually going to make the hire, right? So if you want to argue, okay, well, LSU, the job is open, but who are you going to work for? Okay, that's fine. Well, guess what? I live in Los Angeles. I am here to tell you the UCLA job is open. The AD, Martin Jarmond, is not making the hire. He might technically have the figurehead AD job for a couple more years. He ain't making the hire, and whoever hires the football coach, that football coach will sort of be reporting to Martin Jarmond, but not really. Virginia Tech, it is publicly known, the AD is not making the hire. At Arkansas, Hunter Yurchek's saying all the right things about, I believe that I have the power to make the hire. I don't think ultimately he really has that power. Now, maybe he does, but it's going to come with booster, sway and sway from other people. He doesn't have final say to make that stamp. Even Florida with Scott Strickland, I don't know how much sway that he really has in the hire. So I just think as you start to look at these jobs, and let's just pull out a random candidate, right? Let's just, whether it's James Franklin, whether it's Alex Golish, whether it's John Summerall, whatever. I mean, everywhere you're going to go to, and by the way, maybe it is Lane Kiffin, maybe it is Marcus Freeman. Wherever you're going to go, there's going to be problems. There's going to be issues. And LSU's problems and issues, frankly, are, what do they say? Like caviar problems. In other words, problems are a little bit easier when you're eating caviar. In other words, people that are worth $1 billion have problems just like everybody else, but their problems are a little bit different and maybe a little bit easier to solve than some other ones. Terrible analogy. Like I said, too much candy on this Halloween weekend, but I think you get the point. And I think the point that I'm trying to make is, yeah, it's a little bit dysfunctional. But guess what? It was dysfunctional 5, 10, 15 years ago when Les Miles was winning national championships, when Ed Orgeron was winning national championships. And even if it is dysfunctional, it's frankly probably not that much more dysfunctional than pretty much any other job in America. And so I'm just curious to see what happens. And I do think coaches, yes. Will it be a variable? Absolutely. Is it something to consider? Absolutely. Is it something for someone like Lane Kiffin, who maybe already has a great job and doesn't need to think about doesn't need to worry about a whatever? Yeah, maybe it makes him reconsider. But again, the guys that have good jobs, but maybe not great jobs, they probably should reconsider. They probably should think about it, and it probably isn't going to matter all that much. Listen, none of us know how the coaching hires are going to shake out. Nobody does. Anyone that says they don't know what they're talking about. Even Jimmy Sexton at this point, I don't think knows, hey, this guy's going to end up here, whatever. But what I will say is, I don't think this is going to keep LSU from getting a premium candidate. And by the way, maybe there's just not the premium candidate that everybody wants. Maybe it won't be Lane Kiffin. Maybe it won't be Marcus Freeman. But then guess what? Is it, again, John Summerall? Is it somebody else? Is it what? It doesn't really matter who it is. They're going to get somebody good. I don't think this matters that much. It was great audio for mid-October. Again, we appreciate Governor Landry. And again, Governor Landry, you have an open invite to this show. I just don't know how much it matters. So that's LSU. That's Governor Landry talking about the state of LSU football. Yeah, it's getting crazy down there on the bayou. But again, I don't think it's keeping them from getting a good football coach.